Let me tell you about my second cousin, Klonoa. He's, what actually is he? He's just a nice fella. And he's the star of his very own cult classic video game series. And speaking of cults, if you like video games and pop culture and other scrimblo bimblos, why not do yourself and me a favor by subscribing to this channel for regular content on beloved franchises and characters just like Klonoa here. Already done that? By Klonoa, you took the words right out of my mouth. Then in that case, help me and Klonoa here rise our ranks in this algorithm and take over this platform by hitting the like button. Just the other day, I did a live stream of the entire first game in the Klonoa franchise, Klonoa Daughter Phantomile. And if you want to replay that entire playthrough, it is available to all of my elite cult members, I mean patrons. How's that for a good deal, Klonoa? Jeez, would it kill you to sound a little more enthusiastic? So Klonoa, no one's heard from you since 2008. Where have you been all this time? Okay, can we get a translation on him? What do you mean you don't translate Phantomile? Alright, you know what, Klonoa, just head to the lobby and get yourself a snack. Klonoa Daughter Phantomile was originally released in 1997 and is the first entry into the Klonoa franchise. Is he okay out there? And right out of the gate, there's a lot to love about this little scrimblo bimblo right here. At a time when new video game mascot platformers were all fighting it out for who's the coolest, I mean, for Pete's sake, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger was introduced to us by hospitalizing other gaming mascots. Klonoa was just sincere. Not afraid to be cute, not afraid to be vulnerable. If Sonic the Hedgehog taught a generation of kids that it's not totally radical to cry, well, Klonoa taught the kids that are familiar with him that maybe it is okay to cry. I'm really selling this, aren't I? This is Klonoa. He's cried a couple of times. The point I'm trying to make here is that Klonoa was a series that actually allowed Klonoa as a character to be fleshed out beyond just being a marketing gimmick. He's a fully realized little character in a fully realized little world, which really gave Klonoa an edge when it came to story and storytelling. No matter how cutesy-wootsy this all looks on the surface, it's just easy to root for this guy. So why am I talking about all this now? Because Klonoa is back with the Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series, releasing on pretty much all the major platforms. This is the first time this whatever he is has shown his face since 2008. And to celebrate his 25th anniversary, Jesus, you're 25? Yeah. I'm older than you by 1 year. His first two games have been given the remaster treatment, and the footage you'll be seeing going forward in today's video is from those remasters. Now, this video isn't actually about the remaster though, so don't expect too many comparisons to the original. I can say right now that it's very much the same game. No new mechanics, no new glaring bugs or glitches, Sonic take notes, just with nice new refreshed visuals. I guess I'll go into a little more detail about like the remasters and stuff in a later video, but for now I just want to talk about Daughter Phantomile. And this all looks pretty unsuspecting. Cute little title, cute little song, then suddenly what can only be described as existential piano. Now this is going to be like an analytical video, so yes, there will be spoilers for the game. If you do care about these spoilers, I highly recommend playing the game first. Full stop. I recommend playing the game before seeing my video on it. Trust me when I say the story is worth it and it's worth seeing how this all unfolds for yourself. But if you really don't give a hoot and are just happy to hear what I have to say about it, then stick around. I will warn you when it gets particularly spoilery, so you're safe for now. Klonoa's just frolicking around in the forest, chasing after butterflies and stuff, and dude, you're wearing a collar. Where is your owner? Where is your owner, you stupid baby? He's just out there all on his own. Well, not for long, as he finds a magic ring, which introduces him to his new best friend, Hugh Pal. But the cracks begin to show as the world seems to fall into darkness, but it's okay, it's all a dream. And it turns out he's actually been friends with Hupo for quite a while. Wanting to investigate a crash in the mountains, Klonoa and Hupo set out for adventure, where they discover that Nightmare Seashell Man, aka Guardius, and Joker 2019, aka Joker, have kidnapped the Diva Lafise. So Klonoa and Hupo give chase. And that sounds like a pretty sturdy platformer story. Damsel in distress, you go save him, you fight an evil boogand. But this is where Klonoa really comes into its own, as this is an incredibly layered story. And from the get-go, this game leaves a trail of breadcrumbs and clues as to how things are going to unfold. However, I couldn't have predicted this. Obviously, we have that oddly haunting message about dreams at the very start with the existential piano, Klonoa's strange nightmare, and the fact that these levels aren't stages or worlds, they are referred to as visions. It's possible the game could just be pretentious, but no, there's actually a lot more to this than meets the eye. Before we get overly spoilery, and again, I will really warn you when that comes around, another thing that really sets Klonoa apart from the rest is how the storytelling is approached in-game as well. There's a great sense of world building and geography to this game, with plenty of details just off in the background, such as waterfalls flowing upwards that indicate what's going on. Not only that, but in the music, and I know that good music is kind of almost expected when it comes to the platformer genre. But not only is this music amazing, you'll also be hearing certain character motifs intertwined with certain level themes, which really adds to the cinematic feel to the storytelling here. And look, let me be real. This game, on the surface, might not look cinematic. In fact, it's even less cinematic than its PlayStation 1 counterpart, which came complete with FMV cutscenes. This, on the other hand, no, it does still look like a video game, but everything feels so purposeful. The use of music, the use of the character interactions, the cheeky sense of humor, it all feels very carefully constructed, and so much more layered than what I would ever expect or ask for from a mascot platformer. But even then, visually, this game is really pretty, and because of how good the art style is, it manages to look really good in pretty much all of its incarnations. The PlayStation 1 original uses quite low poly 3D environments and pixel sprites for the characters, but it still looks good to this day because the art style is just that good. This could easily be passed off as a deliberate choice, an homage to that era of gaming, and I think that the original Klonoa daughter Phantomile still just looks good today. However, this new remaster definitely gives you a clearer look at Klonoa and his world, and it's much more colorful and it's just really pleasing to the eye. It's pure eye candy. But graphically speaking, you can't go wrong with either version of Klonoa daughter Phantomile. The presentation here is top notch and the music is just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. The remasters do not change the music, and it's for the best because the music is incredible. For those who know, my favorite tracks include Palladium's Drive and Untamed Heart, but across the board the music is stellar. Moving over to the gameplay, this is another area in which Klonoa separates himself from the rest of the crowd at the time. In the late 90s, early 2000s, platforming mascots were moving forward into the third dimension. However, Klonoa opted to move sideways instead, sticking to the side-scrolling format. However, that doesn't mean that this game was complacent or conservative in its nature, as Klonoa daughter Phantomile would be one of the earlier and more notable instances of 2.5D gameplay, where yes, you're in a 3D space occupied by 3D models, but it's still a matter of moving left and right. With Klonoa daughter Phantomile, these levels wrap and they wind around each other, meaning that moving left and right has never felt so three-dimensional. I can't put my finger on it. I've played many other 2.5D games, such as for example Sonic Colors, where level designs will wrap around and twirl and twine, but somehow Klonoa's just feels very in-depth. It's helped by the fact that you'll also be interacting with things in the foreground and background, as Klonoa can even face like in 3 dimensions. So this game never feels complacent in its 2.5D nature, it honestly feels innovative. Mechanically speaking, Klonoa keeps it simple. Or so you'd think. It's more a matter of making the most of a little bit of simplicity. Klonoa himself has a good sturdy running speed. He's not Sonic the Hedgehog, nor really should he be, but he still feels satisfying to control. And in terms of the other controls, he can jump and he can interact. And that's it. You've got a jump button, an interaction button, and that's your lot. You can extend your jump by holding down the jump button, which makes Klonoa flap his ears and gives you a sort of glide. I hesitate to call it a glide though. It feels more like an extension of the jump because you can get a teeny bit of extra distance out of it. But it mainly just allows you a little bit more hang time just to reposition your jump a little bit. It has saved me in a few occasions and makes platforming a lot more doable in parts. It's also especially good for avoiding certain attacks. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but again, Klonoa approaches this in a very layered way. His ring is what he uses to interact with things, and it can shoot off little wind bullets in 3 dimensions. He can interact with things in the foreground and background, and he can interact with things ahead and behind him. Klonoa cannot attack or double jump by himself. He needs to fire a wind bullet at one of his enemies in order to inflate them. Whoa there, buddy. The internet is way too corrupt these days for that. How things change. I think this was meant to be a pretty kid-friendly alternative to killing. But I mean, he's still effectively killing them. I mean, they're disappearing. However, he can use those inflated enemies to shoot enemies off at other enemies or switches or things that you need to fire long-range things at to interact with, or he can use them for his platforming to utilize them as a double jump function. Meaning that yes, while Klonoa's method of attacking with the wind bullet is very limited, what you can do with your surroundings is where you really get those extra layers here. And there are some really innovative platforming challenges here. Sometimes you need to chain your double jumps with these enemies, and particularly in the latter levels, this can become really challenging. It's wise to bring an enemy with you when entering a new area, but at the same time, this game's not going to let you take advantage of that, as oftentimes the entry points for new areas are too small to fit an enemy through. Either that, or you'll be enticed with a checkpoint that you'll need to throw your enemy or a wind bullet at, meaning that yeah, you'll have no choice but to discard your enemy. Very smart game design, which is just a common theme here. The levels are really smartly designed, the challenges are very smartly designed, everything is fair. I remember my first time playing through this, I felt anxiety at a lot of points. But once you know what to do, the game is perfectly fair. I've seen a lot of differing opinions on whether or not this is to be considered an easy game or fairly challenging. My buddy Wayne thinks it's of the easier variety, but I've seen plenty of reviews with conflicting opinions. So I guess I'll throw my hat into the ring. It's slap bang in the middle. When you know what to do, it's perfectly fair, it's perfectly doable. But there's a lot of challenge in working things out. This is a surprisingly mentally stimulating game at times, but it's also one that rewards you for thinking outside the box, as it's not just getting through levels. If you want to take things a little further, you can try and get all of the gems in the levels, or free the different citizens of each location. And a really great detail here is when you free them, they appear on your level select map, and they will play a song for you. And the more that you get, the more complete that song becomes. Again, just a really nice little time delineation. A really nice piece of storytelling. In terms of its length, Daughter Phantomile is not a particularly long game. I was able to beat it on my live stream in about 3.5 hours. But this definitely falls into the short but sweet category. I wouldn't really want it to be any longer than it is. Given the fairly cinematic nature of its storytelling, and that this is a very story-driven experience, and that story is quite a simple one, it would be very easy for this game to outstay its welcome. Not only that, but everything feels very substantial here. I think this short format works well for Klonoa. Not only that, but if you free all of the citizens, you can unlock an extra vision, but be warned, it is devilishly difficult. However, the bonus ending you get is definitely worth it. Another thing I noticed when going through my replay of the stream was that there are 6 levels overall in Klonoa, with 2 acts each, and of course the final. The last 2 visions take up more than half of the game. They took up more than half of my playtime. These levels get very long. They don't feel overly long, but they do get lengthier. And the structure becomes a lot less linear the further you go. There's a lot that on paper I was like, oh no, do I really have to do that? Is that really the goal of this level? That sounds long, but like when you actually do it, no, it is quite fun. If I do have one criticism of the game though, it is this. The second act of each vision has a boss fight at the end of it, and these boss fights are really well designed and very creative. No complaints there, but I don't like that the boss fights are attached to the second act. I would much rather they be acts of their own separate, meaning that if you quit the game or you do game over, you can just go straight back to the boss fight. Now I know what some of my viewers will be thinking here is like, Pup, you're a Sonic fan, and a lot of the boss fights in the old Sonic games are attached to the second act. The thing with those Sonic levels is they last about 2 to 3 minutes, whereas the stages in Klonoa Daughter Phantomile, especially in the latter part of the game, can get to around about 20 minutes. And when you get to those bosses, When you're playing it for the first time, sometimes you have to die a couple of times to learn a boss's attack patterns. There is some trial and error involved, but this can really whittle your life down. I remember the first time I played the Joker boss fight, it took my lives down from like 20 to 4. And then that was all I had for the remainder of the game. It's just incredibly punishing to have to go back and do all of this all over again when it was the boss fight that killed you. That's something I never like in video games. Like some people say, oh, it's a challenge. I do not like repeating something I already have mastered and already know how to do just to progress. There are ways you can remedy this. You can grind for some extra lives in the first level, or the new remaster offers an easy mode, which removes the life system and gives you more health. And for real, if that's the way you want to play it, no shame. That easy mode definitely tempted me on more than one occasion. Truth be told, and I suppose this should go without saying, Klonoa Door to Phantomile is not a perfect game. And I don't think there's any game I could safely call perfect. There are definitely instances where much of the challenge can fall down to enemies having tiny hitboxes, and Klonoa's invincibility frames are just straight up non-existent, meaning that if you do panic, you can find yourself just getting bombarded with damage. At the same time though, while sure, I guess I could call that an imperfection, at the same time it is quite cool to have a game that, yeah, it can get your heart pumping and your nerves up, but it's just a game you do so much better at by staying calm. I just think it's cool when game design rewards the player for not caving into their nerves. The point is, to me, a masterpiece isn't a masterpiece because it's perfect. When I think of my favorite films and games and such, they're not my favorites because they're perfect. They're masterpieces in my eyes because they exhibit a certain degree of care and artistry, and Klonoa Door to Phantomile exhibits all of that in spades. This is one of the most artistic mascot platformers that I have ever played. There is artistry in everything here. There's an art to how Klonoa platforms. There's an art to how you use his small moveset. There's an art to how these levels are designed. There's an art to the storytelling. There's such a vision here, and it's all just done to an incredibly high standard. And as I think the best summary of it is that Klonoa is the highest standard of simplicity. So, now let's move into the spoiler territory, because I said things were pretty layered. And now, just like the game, we're gonna peel back that layer. Klonoa meets a lot of friends along the way, one of which is his sagely old grandpa. And this is the point where the game pulls you out of that sense of security, that sense of coziness of the cute and colorful world this all takes place in, as Joker straight up nukes Klonoa's grandpa. And Grandpa dies in Klonoa's arms. Then there's the twist that Hupo isn't really a bubble spirit or whatever the hell he's trying to be. He's actually the Prince of the Moon Kingdom in disguise. And he looks ridiculous. He looks like a little Playmobil toy. Now obviously that friendship between Klonoa and Hupo began under false pretenses. As far as Klonoa was concerned, he was just this bubble spirit that was fun to play with, when in actuality he's the Prince of the freaking Moon Kingdom. After this reveal, Hupo asked Klonoa just to hang on a little longer and continue fighting. And Klonoa dismisses the whole kind of reveal, saying they've still been friends. Their friendship was real, even if Hupo wasn't necessarily who he thought, and so he continues the fight, and doesn't hold this against Hupo. And that is such a strong little character moment for Klonoa, just how pure this boy is. There's another great moment where Gardius' plan is revealed. The people of Phantomile trapped him in a world of nightmares, and so he's kidnapped their diva, Lafise, sealed her in an egg with an abundance of nightmares to unleash a world of nightmares onto Phantomile in revenge. And he's willing to die to do so as well. While yes, this does make Gardius quite a layered villain, it also just, like, he is creepy. It could just be how he's offset by the confection of this world. But yeah, when it comes down to design a nightmare man, I think they definitely met that quota. And it's especially creepy when it's just his severed head. Heck, just the mask without even a head inside it, just taunting them at the very end of the game. And then at the very end, we get the reveal that Klonoa is a dream. He's not real, nor does he exist. He was summoned to Phantomile and given fake memories by Hupo in order to guarantee his loyalty that he will save Phantomile from Gardius. So in the end, Hupo drops the bombshell that he completely gaslit Klonoa. Klonoa is pure, he's just a child. And he was perfectly willing to continue being best buds with Hupo, even though Hupo lied to him in the first place. And even now, discovering that his entire life was a lie implanted into his head by Hupo. As angry and upset as he is, he's still willing to hang on. He still loves Hupo. But sadly, as Phantomile is restored to normal, he has to go. Hupo knows it, but even then he still tries to cling on. In spite of the fact that none of his memories are real and he was doing all of this under false pretenses, the friendship between the two of them is pure and genuine. But alas, it's impossible. Klonoa is sucked in back into his own dream world, and Phantomile goes on. And as the credits play, it goes through like a book, and it's turning the pages and showing us all of the events of the game's story once more, now with this new context, which is so freaking powerful. So if you didn't play this game but you still stuck around for the spoiler section, I bet you weren't expecting this, were you? Because even with the clues in the early part of the game, I wasn't expecting this. This has me floored. This is incredible. And the game gaslights you into thinking you wrote this because it puts your name on the front of the book. Hupo, are you trying to make me think I wrote Klonoa? But in all seriousness, Hupo, I know things were desperate, but that was low, man. That was cruel. Hupo gets no respect from me, man. I hate Hupo. Klonoa, perfect, precious. Hupo, nah. I hate that guy. Get out. Leave. And then after all that emotion, it sends you back to that title screen with that happy song. No after credits to show you that Klonoa got home safe or anything. Nah. Just uncompromising sadness. So that is Klonoa, daughter Phantomile, and there's just so much going for this game. Klonoa's a fantastic little mascot, and this is a fantastic little game that I implore you to pick up, because it is terrific. It's a shame that Klonoa never really took off in the past, but I think now's the perfect time for him to come back and stick around. Let's make it right. Let's keep Klonoa in the cultural zeitgeist. I bought 5 copies of this game, and 3 of which were for friends. I really mean it, everybody needs to experience this. So, in the future, I'll also be reviewing the sequel, Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil, as well as like an overview talking a bit more in depth about the remasters versus the originals, including the Wii remaster of Klonoa, daughter Phantomile as well. And we can discuss, you know, which one is the one for you. Alright, go on, get out of here, you scamp. Wait, are you still here? So what do you guys think? If you enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit that big, beautiful subscribe button. And of course, in the description below are links to different social media feeds, including the Patreon. If you're feeling extra generous, like the following people, who are Marcus Ward, Sirius the Skeptic, Biotinarts, Mr. SP, David 20 Covers, Sergio, Shodin, Legendary Ray Ray, Adam Myers. Thank you guys, you are the best of the best. But as for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.